Welcome once again to the BDN podcast, the podcast dedicated to Black diaspora news from the Final Call newspaper. We are not the Final Call, but we read from this magnificent newspaper. And this week, we're going to go into one of the great articles that cover the wonderful role of the African woman in the current rise of Africa that we've been discussing for the last few weeks. So let's get ready. We're going to go into a deep discussion. So we'll see you in a minute.
Welcome to our weekly Black Diaspora News podcast. Let's begin.
Good evenings and greetings, dear brothers and sisters of peace. I'm your host, Brother Roger A. Muhammad from the Muhammad Study Group of Montreal. And tonight, we celebrate based on an article written by Brother Jaron Muhammad titled, Women Represent Strength and Resilience of the African Continent. If you would like to read and get into that magnificent article from the Final Call newspaper, we left the link in the description of this video. Now, Africa annually dedicates an entire month to honor the strength and resilience of women. This month-long tribute provides a platform to acknowledge the generations of African women whose struggles have been the bedrock of progress and empowering women and achieving gender equality. South Africa's National Women's Day is a significant part of this celebration. It pays homage to all African women and is an integral component of South Africa's Women's Month. This provides an opportunity to commemorate the women whose dedication laid the foundation for the advances in empowering women and establishing gender equality. One pivotal moment in this journey was the 1956 protest led by the Federation of South African Women, FSAW, against the apartheid government. Mothers, daughters, sisters, and friends joined forces, saying enough is enough, and taking the initiative to bring about change. But the spirit of African women's resistance and struggle extends far beyond South Africa. In Nigeria, under British colonial rule, the Aba Women's Riot of 1929, which is more appropriately termed the Aba Women's Rebellion, erupted. The rebellion was triggered by the imposition of direct colonial taxation and the introduction of new local courts, especially warren chiefs. Thousands of Igbo women congregated at native administration centers in Calabar, Owerri, and smaller towns to protest the warren chiefs and market taxes. They employed traditional practices such as sitting on a man, using song, dance, and ridicule to voice their dissent. This movement led to the resignation of warren chiefs and significant confrontations with colonial authorities. In Liberia, a unique approach was taken to end prolonged civil war. Liberian women organized a sex strike as a means of protest. The documentary Pray the Devil Back to Hell tells the extraordinary story of these West African women who came together to stop their nation's devastating civil conflict. Lewa Gwowi, leader of the Liberian Mass Action for Peace, explained their motivation and tactics. These women faced immense challenges, but their determination ultimately made a difference. Moving to Northeast Africa, Sudanese women played a crucial role in the protests against the regime of Omar al-Bashir. These women, including students like Ala Sarah, became symbols of resistance. Ala Sarah, standing atop a car in traditional Nubian garb, led demonstrations with her poetry. Now, in the spirit of African women rising today, let's reflect on the timeless wisdom of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan regarding the value and importance of women. Minister Farrakhan's teachings emphasize that women hold a unique and sacred position in society and civilization. As we look at the remarkable examples of African women's resilience, determination, and contributions to their countries and societies, we can't help but to draw parallels to Minister Farrakhan's words. From the Aba women's rebellion in Nigeria to the efforts of Sudanese women, to in the face of adversity, the strength and courage of African women are evident. The teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, as taught by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, remind us that civilization is not judged by men alone, but by the presence and honor of women. When women are deprived of knowledge, respect, and their rightful place in society, the consequences are devastating. As we celebrate the accomplishments of African women this month in Africa, all over the continent and all over the diaspora, let's also acknowledge the importance of respecting, protecting, and empowering the Black woman. Minister Farrakhan's words resonate with the African women who have faced oppression, fought for justice, and inspired change. Just as he emphasizes the sacredness of women's role in the creation and the necessity of her protection, the women of Africa have shown that their power and influence extend far beyond what meets the eyes. Today, as we honor the legacy of African women and their role in shaping the continent's future, as related in the wonderful article we are reading from the Final Call newspaper, let's keep those words of Minister Farrakhan at the top of our minds. So when we come back, we will discuss this in detail with a great panel. As always, my two colleagues will be joining me right after this short break.
There is a need in our community for a universal change. And it has to start with the man. Being a man of God means being a man possessed of the knowledge, the spirit, and the power of God, anointed to do his will. To build a people, you first must make man. Every man, no matter what his color, no matter what his race, every man, in order to be a man, must be a man of God, or he's not a man at all. Let us make man.
All right. And we are back. Back once again with this great and mighty panel. My two brothers, Brother Abdul Sabir Muhammad, the great wise scholar from the Muhammad Study Group of Montreal, and my dear great author and researcher and scholar in his own right, Brother Gabriel X, a great defender of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So let's get into this discussion, my dear brothers. There's a celebration as it's covered by the Final Call newspaper of African women, and we celebrated their great contribution to the struggle. But now I would like to ask you, in light of this celebration, how can we actually, in celebrating that strength and resilience, acknowledge also their foundational role in society and civilization, as emphasized by Minister Farrakhan? Because as we know, in many parts of Africa, women are not given the treatment, they're not given the freedom, justice, and equality that they are deserving in their very own nature and birthright, as we are taught. So how can we now match this celebration with elevating the women, as we are taught that a nation can rise no higher than its women? So let's start as always with you, Brother Abdul Sabir.
Yes, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Praise be to Allah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. I thank you once again to be in the presence of these two powerful colleagues of mine, Brother Roger and Brother Gabriel, and to comment on the Final Call newspaper, the greatest newspaper in the world, published by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and those that are helping him and disseminate this perfectly beautiful together words that is distributed worldwide. In regards to your question, as I read the article by Brother Giron, it brought to my attention the necessary knowledge that all women need to be elevated to that beautiful status that they belong. And it brought to mind also the words of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, in which he said that there is no such thing as a no good woman. And he said that everywhere you find one, she was made that way by a no good man. So let's talk briefly about the no good man that these women seems to be rebelling against. Because the article talked about colonial rule, and the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that the Caucasian are new rulers on the planet, and they were given permission to rule for 6,000 years. And it's very interesting that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said prior to their coming into rulership, Allah had to pull the women in. Because if you're going to have a no good man ruling the earth, you don't need that woman to be corrupted by no good rulership. So now we're witnessing the rising of women against no good rulership, former colonizer. And it's very interesting that the article talked about 1914, and it also talked about 1929. And these are two great historical points that we are taught in the Nation of Islam in regards to the coming of God. And of course, it was a marker. 1914 was the marker of the end of the rule of the Caucasian to colonize and to terrorize all of the darker people of the earth. So what we're witnessing with the rising of women all around the world is a universal recognition that the Black woman is God. This is what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, that not only is the Black man God, but the Black woman is God. And one glimpse that I saw in the article was the women coming into a knowledge of how they can stop warring just by having a sex strike. Think about it. This is the power that all women have. that they can stop violence on the planet Earth overnight if they can get into an MGT class. If they can get into a class taught by the Nation of Islam, the knowledge of themselves, not an integrated class, but a class separated. And what I love about the article, it talked about the coming together of all of the women on either sides to stop the warring, and they stop a civil war just by having a sex strike. No intimacy until the Bloods and the Crips put down their weapons. No intimacy until all of the warring sides put down their weapon. Overnight, there will be peace on the earth. So it was a beautiful article, and there's a lot that we can extract from it, also from the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. And always remember, all human beings are birthed onto the earth through a female. The female is the first teacher. And if a no good man can get his hands on our female and our girls, they will corrupt them. So now we need a righteous man, like the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, a righteous man like the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, to teach these women the knowledge of themselves, that they can give birth to a new generation of righteous men and women, and all of the original people are brothers. So the women need to get this knowledge. And as you see this beautiful presentation here on the science of the resurrection, you can see the woman that's next to Elijah Muhammad. The woman is on drugs. The woman is nakedly clad. How did she get that way? By a no good ruler, colonizer. And look at the end product of the teachings. The woman is civilized. She's covered up. She's taking care of her family. She's pushing back all tyrants in the name of God and in the name of righteousness. So I will hold back my answers on that beautiful question, brother. I want to hear my colleague, brother Gabriel, and as we move on to question number 2. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, brother Abdul Sabir. Very insightful as always. Very much appreciated, my dear brother Gabriel. So same question to you again. As we read in the article, we're celebrating African women for the whole month of October, but that's only talk. How can we now get a true rise of the African woman through, the treatment and recognition and the elevation of women that we know as students of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is required to build and rebuild Africa and the rest of the diaspora?
Yes, sir. So the how part of the question, how we can empower them and protect them. I remember South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa at last month UN General Assembly brought an all-war.
Oh, your volume cut, my brother. We're not hearing you.
Your sound, brother Gabriel, your sound.
Your sound, brother. We're not hearing you. Brother, we're not hearing you. You got yourself on mute. Now you're on mute. You're off mute.
How about now?
Yes, now we hear you.
Beautiful.
Oh, okay, sorry about that.
Come on.
We got you now. We got you back. You're back.
Okay, so when did it cut?
You were talking about the president of South Africa.
Yes. Okay. Well, I'll be quicker, but I'll start over. He brought an all-woman delegation with him at the last UN Assembly and gave some example, which I believe is in alignment with empowering and protecting women. He said, and I'm quoting, "Social and economic progress will not be possible unless we end gender discrimination. We must ensure that there is equal access for women to healthcare." This is, for me, I interpret it as protection. He said education, which is empowerment, of course, and as well as economic opportunities. That is protection and empowerment in my view, because if women have financial security, they're protected, basically. So, and of course, opportunities, if they also work. it empowers them, basically. So as we know from the teachings, and you touch about it, the woman is the second self of God. Like Brother Abdul Sabir said, the black woman is God. So this is very important. The teachings also state that 75% of the work is with the woman. So when we teach a man, we teach an individual, and when we teach a woman, we teach a nation, a civilization. So therefore, and as you had at the beginning, the introduction, Brother Roger, a civilization cannot rise higher than its woman. So I believe we must put God back in the picture and at the center of it. And as we can read in Our Savior Has Arrived by Elijah Muhammad, Messenger of Allah, which is the title of the book. We can go at page 56, last paragraph, and we can read from it that when we say Allah, that name means God and covers all Muslims. All Muslims are Allahs, but we call the Supreme Allah the Supreme Being. Now, since African women are by nature Muslims, they are also Allah. So that knowledge is key, I believe, and it is how we can do these things, which is for empowering and supporting African women. If we promote the value of women as being the second self of God, we start a mind shift for justice and equality from in between men and women, but also in between women. So that would be, I believe, the answer to how we can do these things. So I yield my place. Go ahead, brother.
Thank you very much, brother. Very insightful as always, brother Gabriel. And I want to say to our quote unquote non-Muslim listeners, because some might say what are they talking about, this Islam Muslim thing? Well, really, we're talking about your nature. We're not talking about a religion. We're not talking about making nobody know Arab. We're talking about just as Master Fard Muhammad taught the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, this man whom we believe God came in the person of, he said, accept your own and be yourself. That's all we're saying. So if you're just being yourself, then you're by nature in harmony with God, in harmony with nature, and that's what Muslim means. So let's get to the second question as we wind this down. It's really I really love the articles, explanations, or really narration about the various struggles of African women and their role in the struggles of Africa from yesterday to today, from the protests in South Africa, the examples of the Igbo women. But now, how should this level of activism translate in terms of man's involvement? So we as men, we have a role to play in this. African men in particular, who sometimes have certain mentalities about women and their role. How can we change our perspectives, our attitudes, as expressed by if you read the article or listen to the minister's lecture on the value of the woman? How can we change our perception? Like Brother Sabir said it so well, wherever you find a no good woman, it was a no good man that made her that way. So how can we now be better men to women and not just celebrate with words, Brother Abdul Sabir?
Thank you very much, brother. That's a beautiful question. I really enjoyed it because you brought me back to the coming of the black man accepting his responsibility to make a more decent community for the black women and girls and boys. And this culminated at the gathering 28 years ago on the National Mall for the Million Man March. But prior to that, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan was touring the whole of North America, speaking to black men in general. And he was actually following the what is laid out in the Bible, because God's coming. He says, first, let us make a man. So when you make a no good man into a good man, then you change the whole community, because he said you cannot protect what you do not control. So first, the man has to get control of himself, of his behavior, of his thinking, of his view on women and girls, and accept his responsibility. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is an honorable man. He is an example to all of us. And that's why Allah blessed us to travel from Canada to Washington, D.C., to be with that noble man that we see him as the Messiah, to stand with him and to accept the responsibility. Each one, teach one. This is the words of our great leaders that have moved on. Each one, teach one. So I think it starts with every man in the community, every boy in the community, accepting the responsibility to first change our mind. And when we change our mind, when we change our heart, then we become a reflection of what we want others to be like. And that is the beginning of the change that we're looking for. And then, of course, since the woman is the greatest helper, she's the helpmeet. So if we accept righteousness, it's only in her nature to help righteousness to go to a higher level, because the woman perfects whatever is given to her. If you're a criminal, the woman is going to help you to be a better criminal. So if you accept the responsibility to be a righteous man, you will produce a community of women that inspire to help you be the best righteous man of God that you would desire to be. So the Honorable Louis Farrakhan led us, and he's championing the way. And that's why we follow him, because we all need a man of God in our lives. And I think that's where I would begin to look at that question. And you see the women who follow Minister Farrakhan, these are women of God. So I thank you so much, dear brother, for that beautiful question.
Well, thank you, sir, for that beautiful answer. All praise is due to Allah. That's wonderful. And so as we close, Brother Gabriel, we would love to hear from you, brother. What are your thoughts on that?
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, sir.
All right, just making sure. Yes, sir. So if I reformulate your question, how do we acknowledge it and uplift women from a men's perspective? First, I would say awareness is very important, because we have to be aware of their contribution, of course, of their potential. And the enemy used the schools to indoctrinate us, so we have to do the same, basically, not to indoctrinate, but I mean education, history classes about the how would I say it, the contribution of women, basically. In the article at the end, it talks about the Sudanese women. And I believe that in it, there are some examples, which is basically to make awareness, to make us aware of it, is lectures, discussions, question and answers, sessions, etc. So this could consolidate awareness about the strength and resilience of African women, and to always to uplift their value. We have to go back again to God, because in the first part, in Genesis, a man portrayed as a serpent deceived Eve to go to Adam. So this tells us the value of women. So to make a man fall, the devil has to go through a woman. Well, the same thing we could say about God: go through a woman to get back the man, basically. So you can correct me if I'm wrong, but when Allah came in the person of Master W. Fard Muhammad, he started knocking on doors, selling silk, and there were women inside the house because the men were outside working, right? So it goes also through women. Like Brother Abdul Sabir said, I understand that and I agree with it. But the role of the women is very important. Like we say, she is the teacher of civilization. So this is, I believe, some ways we could answer that question. What we can do: awareness, education, and foremost, God in woman. We must be sure that we understand she is God, she is Allah. So there you go.
I mean, can you imagine how powerful that is when you start talking about, we love to talk about man is God, but women is God, and how differently we will start to perceive women when we start seeing God in women. That's so powerful. And when they see God in us, but in order for that to happen, like you all said, we have to reflect it. And that's our challenge. So thank you both so very much. This discussion, of course, for our listening audience is to stimulate discussion, to stimulate thought, to stimulate interest in you discovering information and knowledge and wisdom that will elevate and change your life. And it is definitely something that you can find by subscribing to the Final Call newspaper, which we highly encourage you to do. If you would like to get your copy delivered to your home, as we see in the ticker, you can contact us directly, or you can subscribe online to the digital edition. And we have a special link for the Muhammad Study Group of Montreal, and we encourage you to do that, to do just that. So that was a great discussion. Always a pleasure to have you both, Brother Abdul Sabir Muhammad, Brother Gabriel X. We look forward to seeing you next week at a new time, Saturdays, 6:15, because we essentially, for those who are tuning in right after the show, you can go right to Closing the Gap. That way, it's an ongoing program from members of the Nation of Islam. We don't want to overlap. We want to, essentially form a chain. So next week, we look forward to seeing you all as we continue to cover the news from the Final Call newspaper. And it is only fitting that we end the show with the following commercial.
We don't sleep when the sun goes